Welcome to NFL World. The NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And before we begin on the NFL news, we must begin with the Celtics playing a horrible Game 7. It was absolutely terrible to watch them play. In the first... Okay. In the first 20 seconds of the game, Jason Tatum gets hurt. He plays through it, limping. And then no one steps up. There was a lot going on. I understand that. You missed first 8 threes. 8. Where Miami, it was like they couldn't miss. Everything they did went in. I understand Tatum was hurt and probably should not have been out there. But you had no one else anyway. You lose the game 103-84. And Charles Barkley went on through this whole series and said the same thing. It's frustrating to watch the Celtics play. When they are good, they take open threes, they score in the paint, they perform very well. They're a pretty good defensive team. When they're bad, it's because they're chucking up open three. They're not chucking open threes. They're just throwing the ball at the backboard in hopes that there's a rebound and they can get another shot. But that's 3 times in the series, at least for the Celtics, that you didn't play particularly well in the whole game. That's twice that's happened. And I believe in game 2, you had them and then you let your foot off the gas, and that's how they beat you. So if you're Boston, did you play particularly well? No, you did not. But you make a big thing about how you want to make history. You want to make history. You want to make history. And at the end of the day, you can't make history if you can't perform that way. That's a problem. Now, does Joe Mazzulla get let go? I don't think so. If you would ask me at the end of Game 4 if the Celtics would have gotten swept, does Joe Mazzulla get fired? I probably would have said yes. I was screaming it from the rooftops at the end of Game 3. But then they found a way to win Game 4. They win Game 5. They dominate in Game 5. They barely win in Game 6. But we started to see the cracks of the armor on both sides. And both sides of the Miami Heat and of the Boston Celtics. To me, it's concerning if I'm Boston. The fact that Jason Tatum everything has to go through him. No one else can do anything. Now, granted, Malcolm Brogdon probably should not have been out there. He had a torn ligament. Why he was out there, I don't know why. But they couldn't score to save their life. To go and not be able to perform in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter. I turned the game off in the fourth quarter. It was about 5 or so minutes left to go. I turned the game off. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I was like, what are you doing? Everything you've done in this series, you've done well. You've attacked the paint. You've forced their defense to have to condense and that you can get an open shot. Because you have guys like Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Marcus Smart who've hit those open shots. Derek White especially. But you weren't doing that. And Charles Barkley said that was going to be the downfall. That there's two teams to the Celtics team. There's the team that is ultra aggressive, that's going to attack, perform, do everything well. And then there's the team that's going to go and just jack up threes and hope that they all go in. And that was what happened in this series. Now, granted, you got to give us some respect to the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler played really well in the series until game 6, and he didn't play that great in game 7. The fact that he won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP is a joke. I think it should have gone to Caleb Martin, who had a dominant series. They saw how valuable he was. I had nothing against Jimmy Butler, but let's be honest, it was Caleb Martin. They got that completely wrong, in my opinion. I understand Jimmy's their best player, but Caleb Martin was the best player in the series, and it wasn't even that close. But and it's not even like Bam Adebayo had much of an impact. But when their role players are beating your role players, there's something wrong here. When their role players aren't as good as your role players, that's a concerning thing for the Boston Celtics. Because you brought in Malcolm Brogdon to get back to the finals, and when you get to the finals, have a guy who can shoot. That's what you did. You couldn't do it. You could not do it. He hurt. He got hurt. Everyone else got hurt. That's a problem. Now, do I blame it all on the players? Mostly. When you have a coach, I get this is the thing that's going to go into Missoula's favor. They were second in the conference. They won the second most games. He didn't have a long period of time to become the head coach. He was quick. He was just named the head coach, and that was it. If I'm the Celtics, do I want to go through that again? My answer is probably not. I don't want to do that. But we'll see what happens in the coming days. Tensions are still pretty high, so let's just see what happens. But now, back to football. Specifically, where does DeAndre Hopkins sign? I wanted to put this, where does he go? Because this is a different question. Where does Hopkins sign? A couple days before Hopkins released, he went on a station, I can't remember what it was, and the host asked him to name the 5 quarterbacks he would want to throw him the ball. And he named Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and all these guys. But he gets to the fifth spot, and he's thinking, he doesn't know. And the reporter asks, well, what about Dak Prescott? And he said, no. He made like a very disgruntled face. That's what happened. And I get that. I 100% do. If you're Hopkins, I think if you're every team, you should make that call. Make that call. Not just if you're a team in the playoffs, but go make that call. See what happens. See exactly what happens and make that call. I would. if you because a report came out this morning, I should say, and said that there was only 2 teams that were completely interested in DeAndre Hopkins, and that was the Chiefs and the Bills. Now, if you're wondering where did this report come from, to be honest with you, I don't know where it came from, but I know it's incorrect because before the draft, which is when this was supposedly happening, we had a report came out that said that the Detroit Lions were in talks with the Arizona Cardinals about a potential trade from, uh, I don't remember what, I think it was both first round picks, but they were going to get the Cardinals first, Baker, and Hopkins, I believe. That's not what happened, but that wasn't also listed. There was at one point the Patriots were interested, but that was never listed either. It was just the Chiefs and the Bills. My question is, who got them this news that the Chiefs and Bills were only interested, no one else was? Because that's inaccurate. There was no person completely interested. Even in the report, they said, "Well, yeah, but after the OBJ thing happened, that's when that deal fell through." That happened before the draft. So you can't say that trade was gonna happen before the draft. Well, we made progress. Sure, okay. You're tiptoeing the lines of fictional and reality. Now, granted, it's not a surprise that the Chiefs and Bills were interested. It's more of a, like, yeah, we kinda figured they're the 2 best teams in the league with the 2 best quarterbacks. And you can say, "Well, what about the Eagles and how Jalen Hurts played?" Jalen Hurts was really good last year. No one can dispute that. What I will say is Jalen Hurts was really good, but Mahomes weren't just good for 1 year. They were good for a couple years before we even said, "Okay, they're the best 2 quarterbacks in the league," and it's not even that close. That's what I'd if I was. So, if I'm them, that's what I'd. But if I'm that's all agent talk. They're saying, "Oh, the 2 best teams are interested in my client." Or in this case, Hopkins is his own guy. Probably went and somehow that got spilled through the grapevine of, "This is what was happening. They offered us a lot, but we said no." Or it just fell through at the end or whatever. So, if I'm any team in the NFL, to recap this, make that call. Make it. See what happens. Make the call, at least touch base with him and see what happens. And a lot of people saying, "Well, hang on, the Bills don't need him. The Cowboys don't need him. The Chiefs, yeah, they need him because their wide receiving core is not the greatest." But why would the Bills need him? Why would the Cowboys want him? I think the best fit for him would be New England. But Bill O'Brien's there, so that's probably not going to happen. What I will say is this: the those teams that say we need him, you should have already made the call. But those teams that want him, you should still touch base and see what happens. Next up, this actually came out over the weekend, and I was kinda surprised, but also really excited when a football movie does come out. It's always exciting, especially for me. It was announced that Will Ferrell is reportedly set to play NFL legend, the late great John Madden, in an upcoming featured film called Madden. It goes on about Will Ferrell's career, his iconic roles, but his next one would be Hall of Fame head coach John Madden for the upcoming film Madden. They said the movie's been in the works for a while. Where they're gonna tell the story of the NFL icon who went and led the Raiders to a Super Bowl, his love of the game and creating on TV and creating Madden the video game. It will be featured on Amazon/MGM feature. It'll be a theatrical release. The release is unknown at this time. I really like this. I think this is a great way to show what John Madden meant to the NFL. I'm intrigued to see how this works. I also like there's no one else you could have gotten for this role. I think Will Ferrell can the only other person I think could encapsulate this isn't even a actor. Okay? Like that's how good this position is. So if I'm Will Ferrell, this is a very exciting role. The only other person that could probably do it, and it's only because he's impersonated John Madden, was Frank Caliendo. He's the only other guy, so I hope Frank is involved in this movie. Otherwise, it'd still be really good, but I hope Frank Caliendo's in the movie. I think it would be hilarious to just see how that dynamic works out. Also hope they tell the story about the turducken and how that all happened, because that's a very exciting story. Next up, Jimmy Garoppolo, when this reportedly happened, Jimmy Garoppolo had underwent foot surgery in March, and a report came out that said Raider the Raiders put a injury waiver in Jimmy Garoppolo's contract, meaning that they could release him and not really pay him a dime. Now you ask, how does that happen? And why does that happen? I've not seen it for a quarterback, but the ones that I have seen is okay, there is a chance, there's a likelihood that this can happen. The last one I remember was, I think it was 2020, the last time I heard about this, was when Gerald McCoy signed with the Cowboys and said, like, he had injured his quads before, and they said if he had a quad injury, he will he can be cut if we want. And that's what happened. He got hurt, injured his quad, and was released shortly thereafter. I assume that's a similar thing for Jimmy Garoppolo. Broke his foot last year, had to have surgery on it again. We'll see what happens. I don't think they'll cut him. I don't think that because there's no one that I would really consider other than this man who is a recently retired quarterback. And a new minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders named Tom Brady. And this is what happened. You knew this could happen. Now, it's a little bit of a jump, and the reason I say it's a little bit of a jump is because when you become a minority owner, you have to buy stocks of the team. So basically, I'll give you a great example. The Packers don't have an owner. They have a board. It's like a company. But the fans are the owner because the fans buy stock. If you buy stocks from the team, you become an owner. You get like a plaque, a framed thing. It's a big, big thing. That's basically what Tom Brady did, except he bought it through Mark Davis. Now, how did this come to be? That he could be the next quarterback if Jimmy G is not there. It came to be when a couple months ago, after the combine came out, there was news that Tom Brady might not be done, but no one really believed it. And then he did a kind of sit down interview, and they asked, "Is he done? Is he done playing?" And he didn't say definitively yes. He didn't say that. He just said, "Look, I have a lot of former teammates or a lot of former players will that I was with during the years, and a lot of people I respect that are on the Miami Dolphins, so I'd probably root for the Miami Dolphins." Nothing crazy, but that gets the media wheel turning. Now he buys ownership of the Raiders. Now he's not full owner. That's not the same thing. He's a minority owner, meaning he bought some stocks. He's part of that group, and I like it. I like to see what happens. And if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, you're like, I hope he's done. Let's just say he's done. Let's get on with it so I can move on with my career. But if I'm Tom Brady, I think my NFL years are done. But it also tells you how hard it is to play or to give it up, I should say, to give it up in the, I guess. It's really hard to give it up. You see all these players that have played their whole career and never found the way. I think it's so hard to be good. I remember Tom Brady said in his documentary, The Man in the Arena, he's like, "In the beginning part of my career, we went and won 2 Super Bowls really quickly, and I won 3 Super Bowls really quickly. I didn't understand how difficult it was to win a Super Bowl or to go to a Super Bowl until I went and we had a couple years we had 10 years where we didn't win a Super Bowl, and then our 2 best teams that I felt were our 2 best teams didn't win. So it just showed how complicated it was to win in the Super Bowl, to be a Super Bowl champion, how complicated, how hard It's to play that way until the bitter end. If it's Tom Brady, I guess you cannot rule it out, but I think it's pretty much easy to say, yeah, he's done. He's not playing it. And final thing, Trey Lance went and said he's 100% healthy entering 2023. Lance and well, really, I should say the 49ers said this, that they've talked about every quarterback, literally every quarterback in their quarterback room, because I don't think they ever could imagine that they need to play 4 guys during the course of a season, including the playoffs, to go and you have to play a young guy, Trey Lance, which you feel is your best guy. He gets hurt in week 2. Jimmy Garoppolo, who then gets hurt. So then you put in Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. He gets hurt. You gotta then put in your 4th string guy who gets hurt. Then you gotta have Christian McCaffrey go and try and throw a ball, which was disappointing to say the least. And they did the same thing here when they said Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, everyone, Brad Allen. It was crazy. It's scary. I'm intrigued to see if Trey Lance can stay healthy a whole year because he hasn't. Absolutely has not played a whole year. So I'm intrigued to see exactly what happens. I hope he plays. He's only played in, I think, 4 games in his whole career in 2 years. That's scary. And we'll see where Brock Purdy is. They said he was gonna start throwing this week, so I can't wait to see how he looks. But Trey Lance says he's 100%. Brock Purdy's supposed to start throwing this week. Let's see what happens in the land of San Francisco. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.